Thanks so much for joining us today. On today's session, we have two students that are going to talk to us about how their involvement on campus activities and within Greek organizations positively impacted their decision to apply and prepare for business graduate school. We have Katie Dawson with us, who earned her BA in Global Studies from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in 2016, and was a member of Chi Omega. And she's currently a master's candidate in marketing and management at the McIntire School of Commerce at UVA. And we also have Patrick Phelan joining us. He earned his BA in philosophy from Duke University in 2007 and was a member of Beta Theta Pi. And he's currently an MBA candidate in the Marshall School of Business at the University of Southern California. So guys, thanks so much for joining us. I'd like to, take some time today to share, for you to be able to share with us what your experiences have been like, both at the undergrad and at the graduate level. And I'm Kaylin Burns. I'm going to be your host for tonight's session. I am a manager with the market development team for the Americas with the GMAC. And so I work with students like yourself who are considering taking the GMAT, and we think that it's great that you're joining us tonight, so thanks so much. Before we go any further, though, I would like to provide a quick housekeeping note. We want to be able to provide you with the opportunity to hear from us today and to also get all of your questions answered. If a question comes up, post it in the comment section below the video screen, and we'll be sure to answer as many as we can during the last 15 to 20 minutes of today's session. So without further ado, Katie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So like you said, I graduated from UNC last year. I was a global studies major, which was super broad, took a lot of different classes in different departments, which I loved. I'm from Charlotte originally, and so it's nice and close to school. Big basketball fan, go Heels. What else do you want to know? Yeah, I was a member of Chi Omega, which I loved, and now I'm at UVA.
Perfect. How about anything, a fun fact about yourself?
I am a nationally ranked horse show jumper.
Pretty cool. Awesome. Thanks so much. And Patrick, we don't want to leave you. Well, go for it. Share with us a little bit about yourself as well, please.
Sure. I went to Duke undergrad. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but was really hungry for meaning. So I majored in philosophy with a minor in music. And then I was a professional musician for 4 years. Saw a lot of the country and Europe. After that, I worked in startups, tech startups for about 5 years, and came over to LA about 4 years ago. Was working for Sony, Sony Music. And then I came back to business school at USC to get my MBA and see if I could get out of the music industry and move on into technology.
So what are, when you think about you're going to be graduating in a couple of weeks, do you have anything lined up, or what is a dream career for you?
Well, I'm waiting to hear back from several companies. I'm really close at Disney Parks, their technology team. There are a few tech consulting firms. I'm talking to Deloitte Digital. I'm not too worried. I should know something in the next month or so, but just got to be patient at this point. Excellent.
That's great. Katie, you're also graduating this year, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's your dream for you now that you'll have your MBA?
Oh, I only have a master's of science. Yeah, but I'd love to work in sports or entertainment marketing. Definitely stay probably on the East Coast, most likely. But nothing lined up yet. We have 2 weeks left of class, and then our whole program actually goes abroad, which is awesome. So I'm going to the Middle East, India, and Singapore, which will be a lot of fun. So I have about 2 months before I'm actually done. Okay. But with marketing, they need you right away. So nothing yet.
Okay, great. Tell me a little bit, when you think back to your undergraduate career, were there any organizations that you were involved in that kind of helped you decide, kind of draw you in this path to eventually pursue a graduate degree?
Me, or?
Throw it out to either one of you.
Sure. Yeah, I volunteered at a child development institute, which was awesome to see. I was definitely interested in psychology, but it sort of helped me see that I didn't want to go down the graduate psychological path. which would have been a PhD. And so coming out of undergrad, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But these one-year programs sort of gave me a great opportunity to combine liberal arts and some business skills.
Great.
Myself, in undergrad, I was in a fraternity, Beta Theta Pi. Several of my brothers since then have gone on to get their MBA. I thought that eventually down the line I would get an MBA. My music career just went a little bit longer than I expected, and I was happy for that to happen. And yeah, I definitely would say, you know, my fraternity has been a huge value worldwide. Everywhere I've been, I've met betas. So it's a great organization to be a part of.
Sure. A great network for you to have during this part of your life and for the future as well.
You bet.
Katie, can you speak at all to the influence that your Greek organization had on you?
Yeah, definitely. Sort of the same thing. It's a huge network, and I find that even if they're not in Chi-O, definitely having the sorority link brings a talking point of so many women were in the Greek system. So even if they didn't have the same experience as me at UNC, it's still a great way to network and talk to different people. So definitely a big part of my undergrad and moving forward.
Were you able to call on your brothers or sisters for advice when you were planning to take the GMAT?
A couple of people were taking it as well, and actually I found out about my program from an older girl who had already graduated and done the program, so she definitely was a help.
You talked a little bit about how you found it to provide a supportive network. What were some of the ways that the Greek organization supported you while you were going through this process? Either one of you.
Well, because I did a little bit, I had 8 years of work experience before I went back to school. I've stayed in touch with a few betas. There are a few things you can do if you're ever at a public speaking engagement, that you can locate any betas within the room. Mm-hmm. But in terms of getting my MBA, it was pretty self-driven. Yeah, some of my brothers had done it, but because of the gap, it was really pretty self-motivated for me.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I mean, taking the GMAT was definitely self-motivated for me as well. A few other people were taking it in my pledge class, but no one else was applying for these types of programs specifically in my year.
So were you able, did those that were also taking the GMAT, did you all work together in study groups and kind of using the different prep materials and just giving each other support?
Yeah, I personally didn't. I did a lot of the work by myself, but definitely the house and just knowing someone else was studying as well was a comfort. But yeah, I would do a lot of the practice tests on my own.
Sure, absolutely. What have you been able? What did you learn from your involvement in Greek life that you're still applying to your business school experience today?
Well, I would say the power of the network in terms of networking. I think you can either be a natural networker or you can be taught to be a networker. And business school is all about networking and meeting the right people and trying to find common ground. Whether that's the university you went to, or a sport you're interested in, or a fraternity that you're in, or if they were in another fraternity. In terms of landing a job or getting into school, I don't think I leveraged my fraternity or any skills that I gained in my fraternity, but I have met a few of my fellow classmates now in the program that were betas at other schools, and that brought a level of closeness and a level of connection that we had. But anyone that's going to be in the program with you, you're going to bond with because you're working so hard together. So I would say being in Greek life in undergrad, you might suffer together in whatever way that is, with school or with pledging or with juggling multiple responsibilities. And so learning to rely on each other and make connections is a lifelong skill that you can always apply.
Yeah, I agree. Making those connections and networking and using the Greek system to your advantage definitely has played a role. And like Patrick was saying, that you get so close with the people in your program just by working and spending so much time together that it even enhances the networking skills from Greek life.
Sure. And of course, having those different leadership skills that you built upon in your undergrad years, whether through Greek life or the other organizations that you were both involved in, also help when you're in that group dynamic as well of your master's programs. So that's great. Awesome. Tell me a little bit about, you know, Katie, when did you decide that you were going to pursue a master's program? And kind of, can you walk us through a little bit of the steps as far as when you decided and what your prep looked like a bit?
Yeah, so I probably decided a little bit late. I decided probably midway through my fall semester of senior year that I was even going to take the GMAT. And so I registered and believe I took it at the end of November of my senior year. And didn't apply until January, February time. So definitely a little bit on the later side, because a lot of these programs accept applications way into the spring. So timeline-wise, I took the GMAT late fall, finished my applications, and then heard back sort of beginning of March, mid-March, and then I actually took the full month that my schools gave me to decide, and sort of decided what I was doing by end of April, early May.
Great. What was, when you think back to when you were preparing for the GMAT, and if you could give any insight to our prospective candidates at this time, what was your best GMAT study tip?
For me, it was probably, I should have focused more on math. I'm definitely stronger on the reading and writing side, so those practice tests were more enjoyable, but definitely focus on what your weaker parts are.
Okay. Patrick, you know, you're a bit unique, I think, for some students who may be thinking about grad school right after undergrad, but I think everyone has their own path, and you need to find your path, right? How did you, when you kind of decided, I'm going to apply to graduate school, to business school, what was your timeline looking like then for preparing for the GMAT?
Yeah, it was a heck of a process. I was in the process of leaving my job in North Carolina to move out to Los Angeles, and I took 4 practice tests in North Carolina, and then I took 2 tests in North Carolina and wasn't happy with my score. Moved out to LA, got situated in my new job in LA, and then after about 6 months, then I spent the next 6 months. I think I took 7 practice tests, 1 every weekend. Took my final official test and got the score that I thought would get me into a good school, and so and I did that with the help of a Princeton review. I paid for that, and it was definitely worth it. I did it online. I would work all day, and then I'd practice 2 hours a night, 4 or 5 days a week for about 6 months.
Sure. And so while every candidate's prep process is going to be different. And of course, there are many different prep materials that are out there for all of our candidates to use when thinking about taking the GMAT and how to prepare for the GMAT. So obviously you used one area. There are also opportunities for candidates to use the resources that are on the MBA.com prep store as well. But I think every candidate, you need to kind of get into a groove and kind of see where you're going to best work for prepping and what's going to work best for you. So for Patrick, it was taking those practice tests to give you the confidence to sit for that final exam, which is great. And Katie, you mentioned the practice exams as well. So really being able to know what was on there, and once again, have that confidence to walk into the test center and know that you would know the format and be confident moving forward. So great. How did you deal with pre-test nerves? Was there any little rituals that either one of you had, or was there any way of rewarding yourselves after, maybe spending that weekend doing the pre-test exam, or, after going through a review session?
I probably don't have any pre-test nerve advice, but I would say, once you get your studying done and the test is a few days away, I would just relax, take your mind off it. If you've done your studying, you're going to be good and not overstressed.
Yeah. for myself, for my practice test, I would take a practice test on Saturday and then review my answers on Sunday. And then I actually took a practice test on site just to go through, because a practice test that you do at home is different than being on site. And I'm glad I did that because I did the practice test, and then a week later I did the real test, and I got the best score I'd gotten because I think I felt so comfortable. So if you have the time and the stomach to do it, that works for me.
Great. Did either one of you kind of do a test run to the test center and kind of like, you thought about sitting for the exam on a Tuesday morning? Did you go out the week before and kind of see what traffic was going to be like and kind of scope it out, or did you just show up on the day of?
I just showed up the day of, but I would maybe recommend at least, knowing where everything is, especially if the test site isn't, you don't already know where it is. So I just recommend knowing, which floor of the building, where you're going to park and all of that before the day of.
Bring down those points.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Patrick.
And if you live in an area that has a lot of traffic, for instance, Southern California, you would want to leave an hour before you normally would. But like Katie, I just showed up on the day of.
Okay, great. What advice would you give to someone who, maybe they might be someone that you run into on campus that is an undergrad, or maybe someone who is also in the same Greek organization that you were in, and is reaching out to you for advice about starting the process of applying to business school or to a master's program? What would you share with them?
Do a lot of research. I mean, there's a ton of different programs and different types of programs out there. So talk to people network a little bit, and just do a lot of research on the programs and what you might be interested in, because there's a lot out there.
When you say research, Katie, did you do your research through online webinars, through on-campus programs, what website searches? What was a driver for you?
I would say a lot of website searches, and then a lot of word of mouth and talking to people of what they did or what they've heard of. Definitely helped me find out about a couple programs. But then once you get searching and you find maybe a program you like, you can do an internet search of who else has a similar program, and sort of you go down that rabbit hole of research and get a lot of information.
Sure. Patrick, how about for yourself?
In terms of researching, like, are you asking researching the programs or preparing to enter into the application process?
I think let's think about advice that you would give to students that are considering a program. They're thinking about going to business school, and then I think the application piece. Let's touch upon that next.
So I can touch on both of those. If you're not sure what program you want to go in, but you want to go to a program, obviously do some research. But if you know the program and you're ready to apply, I would say focus on, especially if you're in school or working, I would say focus on about 5 schools. Understand what your criteria are, whether it's geography or prestige or where a significant other is. And then in terms of preparing for that whole application process, apply as early as possible, make as many connections, make as many visits as you can. And if you're an undergrad and you want to go to business school, it's not the worst idea to take the GMAT while you're in undergrad, because your skills are still sharp and fresh. So I would recommend that as well.
And I think that's great. When I share that with prospective candidates as well. And I think, Katie, you can definitely touch upon that, having taken the GMAT during your undergrad career. Do you feel that it gave yourself an advantage?
I think so, just because I had the time last year. I know in my case anyway, my senior workload was a lot lighter than past years, so I definitely had the time to study. I may take it again if I go back to school, just because I got the scores I needed for these programs, but I probably would want a higher score. But I definitely would recommend taking it while you can in undergrad.
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry, Patrick.
It was definitely more challenging for me to do it, 7 years later. So Katie did the right thing.
And I think the great thing is that, as an undergrad, when you take those scores, they're good for 5 years. So if you're not thinking business school right the year after, like you did, Katie, you have that opportunity to save those scores, do your research, maybe hop out into the career field like you did, Patrick, and then know that you still have the scores available to you to apply to different programs when you're ready to do so. So Patrick, you hadn't touched upon the application process. Katie, if you could just maybe give a couple of quick tips about what you found beneficial when you were applying. If you could do it again, would you do anything differently?
I probably wouldn't. I had a pretty narrow list of what I was looking for and what schools. For the application, I would say the questions get pretty creative, at least for the programs I was applying to. So definitely be yourself. The reps from the school say that. I mean, they look at your transcript, but on the essays and sort of the other questions they want you to answer, they want to learn something about you that's not on your transcript. So I would definitely say put some personality into the application.
Perfect. Patrick, did you feel that way as well?
Yeah, for sure. It's good to have a clarity of vision and what you want, and they're often going to ask, what is your short-term goal post MBA and what is your long-term goal? And you need to understand, you need to have a clear vision there. But the truth is, for anyone who's in business school, is it's okay if your plan changes. Just come in there with a plan based on what that school is known for.
Okay, great. When you are there any activities, courses, or clubs for maybe undergraduate students that are interested in pursuing an MBA or master's program that you can remember were available to you during your undergrad career? That were maybe on campus?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Do you remember, well, let me rephrase that a little bit. When you think back, Katie, for you, since it was only last year, did you take advantage of any of the career fairs or symposiums that might have been offered on campus for students that were thinking about maybe going the grad school route instead of right into the career fields?
I didn't, because at first I didn't know I wanted to go to grad school. So by the time I decided, a lot of them had already been there in the fall or previous years. I did go to, actually, Virginia came to campus, and I went to that one because I knew about it and knew I was maybe interested. So I definitely went to some of them, but not probably as many as I should have.
Sure. It's always hindsight after the fact, right?
Yeah.
Patrick, anything to add?
Sort of similar to what Katie said. I knew that I was I got a job offer at Bank of America, but I knew that I wanted to see if I could make my music career work out. So I know that there were probably plenty of resources out there, but I did take advantage because I had a different goal at that time. Okay,
perfect. I just want to touch back upon when you guys were talking about your search and let candidates know that you can, when you go to MBA.com, you have the opportunity to use our School Finder profile, and there you can search for different programs. And much as you talked about, looking at geography locations, different types of programs, how the length of time, what they're requiring. So be sure to check out that resource for candidates on MBA.com. Guys, anything else that you wanna share at this time with our prospective candidates who are thinking about grad school and the GMAT, and any last pieces of advice? Or
I would say take it now. Even if you don't go to school in 5 years, you'll have those scores for 5 years. I don't know where if these people are juniors, sophomores, seniors that are here on the chat, but if you're able to take it now and in preparation for the test, take as many practice tests as you can, because that was the only way I was able to get above 700.
Yeah, I agree. Take it now. Try to do well, just because those scores count, and you'll thank yourself later. And yeah, it seems like a very, very high pressure thing, but I think it's definitely manageable if you set aside the time and put the effort in. It's not something that's going to be super overwhelming once you get in there to take it.
Sure. Katie, we have a question for you. We have a guest that would like to know, what was the toughest part of your GMAT journey?
I think probably I took it once and I did pretty well. And so I was like, oh, I'll just take it again. I'm bound to do better. And then I just didn't study and figured I'd do better, and took it again and actually did worse. So I ended up just using my first score to go. So I think that that was definitely, I don't know if it was the toughest, but it was the most sort of rude awakening that I should probably have studied if I was going to take it again.
Sure. And, we get the question a lot from candidates when we're on the road, when should I start to study for the exam? And as I share with, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this as well, your study plan is going to be unique to you. You know what type of student you are and how you learn best. And so we always advise students to keep in mind what the application deadline is looking like. So for Katie, you took it at the end of November, knowing that you had those spring deadlines. And of course, plan out when how you're going to start studying based on when you're also going to register for the exam. And do know that you can register for the GMAT 6 months in advance. So if you need that end goal in sight, that can also work for candidates. And, the sooner that you register in advance, the greater availability of different test dates that are available for you as well. So did either one of you have any issues with getting a test date that you were looking for?
Not in particular. I think days like Fridays and maybe the morning dates filled up quicker, but nothing that, I wasn't blocked out of getting any days that I wanted.
Okay, great. We know that there was a question about how much the practice test helped, but I think we know that you guys both benefited from the practice test and really liked that and was a good piece for you in the test prep piece. We also like to share with candidates that the keys to a successful GMAT are knowing your own skill and ability level and knowing what areas you're good at. So Katie, you made mention of that as well, that your math skills weren't?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the student you are, you might want to focus a bit more on those particular areas, and you can find that out through those practice tests as well and see where your strengths and your weaknesses lie. Katie, how did you incorporate taking the GMAT while still being an undergrad? How did that impact your study and your class schedule?
I think it worked really well. I mean, I'm sure it was a lot easier than having to do a full work day and then trying to fit it in. I was definitely like a morning class person, and so my afternoon and nights were pretty free to do that. And I mean, it would work the opposite way if someone wanted to do that. But I think that's what makes it such a good time to take it, is you're only in a couple classes a week and you have that free time and the weekends. So it fit really well into mine, especially since I at UNC was underloading senior year.
And you have those resources on campus as well if you need them. So if you need that math tutor or whatever it may be, take advantage of it. Great. What else, Patrick, you made mention of this. Do you find, you've taken so many practice exams and sat for the exam a couple of times when you were in North Carolina, and then when you got back out to LA, you did it again. Did you find that when you were in LA, you were really comfortable with the process and what was expected of it?
In general, yes. I mean, if I could stress anything, it's just take all the tests you can, because it's a certain type of question they're going to ask you, and there's a certain way to be able to answer that question. So you're just training your brain how to think in a way you probably don't normally think. You can definitely do the test if you just learn the pattern of the test.
Great. And of course, for students that aren't familiar, the GMAT is a computer adaptive test as well. So it will, the questions will change based on how you are performing throughout the test. So, well, guys, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day, evening to sit in and give some advice to our prospective candidates that are considering graduate programs and the GMAT as well. There are no further questions at this time, and so we'll let you guys get back to your studying and finish up these final weeks of the semester. For those of you that have joined us, thanks so much. Remember that in the next 24 hours, you will be receiving a recorded link so you can review this session as well. And then don't forget to visit gmat.com/undergrads to learn more about the GMAT exam and how you can have an opportunity to receive almost $100 off the test. So guys, thanks so much. Good luck to you, and look forward to hearing what you have to do after graduation.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Take care.